Rachel Wilson strode through Meridian Enterprises, her heels clicking against marble floors with authority. As she straightened her blazer, she noticed him a janitor sitting with a copper-haired little girl showing him drawings. The man's face lit up with pride, his smile radiating warmth. When an executive approached, loudly complaining about children in the workplace, Rachel surprised herself by intervening. Something about this maintenance worker's quiet dignity intrigued her. She introduced herself and invited him for coffee. What she didn't know was that she had just asked the majority owner of Meridian Enterprises, her boss, for a date. And Ethan Mills had no intention of telling her. Not yet. At 40, Ethan Mills adjusted his maintenance uniform in the bathroom of his modest apartment. The silver at his temples told stories of both joy and grief. From the bedroom, his daughter Emma called about a missing notebook, her voice carrying the familiar panic of a 7-year-old. He smiled. Emma was brilliant but scattered, just like her mother had been. Sarah. Even after 3 years, thinking about her created a hollow ache in his chest. Cancer had taken her quickly, leaving him and Emma to navigate a world suddenly empty of her presence. Before Sarah's diagnosis, Ethan had been a founding partner of Meridian Enterprises, building it from a startup to the corporate force it had become. He was the technical genius who developed the proprietary software that revolutionized the company. When Sarah got sick, he stepped back, withdrawing from daily operations to care for her. After her death, he couldn't bring himself to return to the executive suite. The boardroom seemed meaningless compared to raising his daughter. So he arranged to retain his 49% ownership but remain silent, letting the board think he had sold his shares to an anonymous investor. Working as a janitor had been an impulsive decision, a way to check on his company from ground level, to understand how it truly functioned beyond spreadsheets. He never expected it to become a refuge, a place where he could work with his hands and clear his mind. He never expected to meet Rachel Wilson, either. Rachel stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the city wake up below. At 33, she had achieved what most executives took decades to reach: the CEO position of a major corporation. Temporary or not, it was an accomplishment she had sacrificed everything for. Her assistant Melissa brought in urgent matters requiring attention, reminding her of her father's upcoming retirement party, another opportunity for him to compare her to James Porter, who he still believed should have gotten her position. You need to be twice as good to be considered half as qualified, her mother had warned when Rachel first entered the business world. She had taken those words to heart, working longer hours, sacrificing relationships to prove herself. And it had worked. When the previous CEO stepped down, the board had appointed her, not James, as acting CEO. 11 months later, she was still proving herself every day, knowing one mistake could cost her everything she'd worked for. The cafe on the ground floor was strategically neutral, public enough that Rachel could maintain professional appearances, but quiet enough for actual conversation. She arrived 5 minutes early, selecting a table with a clear view of the entrance. At precisely 3 o'clock, Ethan walked in, having changed from his maintenance uniform into clean jeans and a simple button-down shirt. "Right on time," she said, offering a small smile. "Military father," Ethan replied, returning the smile. Being late was never an option in our house. There was an awkward moment as he settled across from her. Rachel realized that despite her confidence in boardrooms, she was suddenly unsure how to proceed with this man who existed outside her usual professional circles. "I ordered you a cappuccino," she said. "I hope that's okay." As they began to talk, Rachel found herself drawn to his authenticity. When she mentioned his daughter, Ethan's entire demeanor changed, pride washing away any guardedness. "She's amazing. Too smart for her own good sometimes. She gets that from you, I imagine." Ethan hesitated. Her mother, actually. Sarah was a physics professor. Emma inherited her curiosity. Was? Rachel caught the past tense immediately. She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. The words were simple, but Rachel could see the depth of loss behind them. To her own surprise, Rachel shared details of her own life, her divorced parents, her mother's bookstore, her upbringing. The conversation flowed easily after that. They discovered a shared love of classic films, debated hiking trails, and found common ground in their appreciation for coffee. Ethan was knowledgeable about surprising topics, from engineering to Renaissance art, not what she expected from a janitor. The next few weeks established a pattern. Rachel would find reasons to be near wherever Ethan was working: a printer needing fixing, a light fixture flickering, an office plant needing relocating. They would talk while he worked, brief conversations gradually revealing more of themselves. She learned that Ethan had traveled extensively in his 20s, made model ships in bottles as a hobby, and volunteered teaching a weekend engineering club at Emma's school. He never complained about his circumstances, approaching every task with calm competence. He learned that Rachel had put herself through business school, could recite poetry in French, had a rescue cat named Fitzgerald who destroyed her houseplants, and that despite her confident exterior, the board's pending decision kept her awake at night. One evening, during a power outage, they navigated the emergency stairwell together. "Your office light was the only one still on when I started my rounds," Ethan observed. "You work too late too often." The gentle criticism surprised her. No one spoke to Rachel that way anymore, with genuine concern rather than deference. Later that week, Rachel spotted Ethan in the company cafeteria and joined him without overthinking it. As they ate, she noticed employees watching them curiously. "Emma asked about you last night," Ethan said. "She wanted to know if the nice lady with the pretty shoes would like to see her art project sometime." Rachel felt a flutter in her chest. "I'd like that. If it's okay with you, of course." "More than okay." She doesn't have many female role models in her life right now. As Rachel walked back to her office, she realized that what had started as curiosity about an unusual janitor had become something more complicated, a friendship that was increasingly important to her. What she didn't know was that Ethan was wrestling with his own growing feelings, complicated by the secret he continued to keep. The board of directors meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock sharp. But Rachel had been in her office since 6, reviewing her presentation one final time. This meeting would determine whether the acting would be removed from her title. When her phone buzzed with a text from James Porter, professional courtesy won out over her instinct to ignore it. "Heard about the security breach. Terrible timing. Good luck in there." Rachel froze. "What security breach?" She was already dialing IT security. "Marcus, what's going on?" "I just heard about a security breach. We're still assessing the situation, Miss Wilson. Someone accessed the Porter acquisition files last night from a terminal in the maintenance department. The files were copied to an external drive." Rachel's blood ran cold. The Porter acquisition was still confidential, the centerpiece of her presentation to the board today. If those details leaked before the announcement, her credibility would be shattered. By the time Marcus called back, Rachel had convinced herself there had to be another explanation. "The login used belonged to Scott Parker in maintenance," Marcus reported. "But Parker swears he wasn't there last night. Who else had access to his login? He says he left his ID card in his locker briefly while showering after his shift. But someone could have borrowed it," Rachel finished. "Who else was working that shift?" "Ethan Mills was on duty, among others," Marcus finally said. The board meeting proceeded as planned, but Rachel could feel the tension in the room. Word had gotten out. Several board members exchanged glances when she mentioned the Porter acquisition. By the end of her presentation, they were hesitant to make a final decision on her position. In light of recent security concerns, the board chairman said carefully, "We believe it prudent to defer our decision for 30 days. Back in her office, Rachel found Bradley Hoffman waiting for her. "I heard what happened," he said without preamble. "The maintenance guy you've been friendly with, word is he's the prime suspect. The investigation is ongoing. No conclusions have been reached." Bradley leaned forward. "Look, Rachel, the board is watching how you handle this. If you show favoritism because of your personal relationship with this janitor, it will confirm every whisper that you're not tough enough for the permanent position." After Bradley left, Rachel sat at her desk, anger and doubt warring within her. She needed to speak with Ethan directly. She found him in a supply closet on the 12th floor, inventorying cleaning products. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "Someone accessed confidential files last night, using Scott Parker's ID. You were working last night. You think I stole company information?" The hurt in his eyes was unmistakable. "I don't know what to think. The login was from a maintenance terminal during your shift. And automatically I'm your prime suspect. Because I'm just the janitor who couldn't possibly have any other reason to talk to the CEO except corporate espionage? Then explain it to me, Ethan. Help me understand what happened. I can't explain something I didn't do." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I was working on the 9th floor most of the night. The broken air conditioning unit, remember? Can anyone verify that? Security cameras should show me there. And the night guard checked on me around midnight." He looked at her directly. "Rachel, I would never betray your trust. Not for money, not for anything." She wanted to believe him. Everything in her instincts told her he was telling the truth. But her career, her reputation, everything she had worked for, was on the line. "The board has delayed their decision on my permanent appointment because of this breach," she said, her professional mask firmly in place. "I need to conduct a thorough investigation, which means I'm suspended until further notice," Ethan finished for her. "I understand how this works." As he moved to leave, Rachel reached for his arm. For what it's worth, I don't believe you did this. He turned, his expression guarded. But you have to act like you do. The board is watching. Your career is at stake. After he left, Rachel returned to her office, a hollow feeling in her chest. She had just suspended the one person in the building who made her feel like herself again, all because she couldn't risk appearing weak to the board. What she didn't know was that across town, Ethan Mills was making a phone call that would change everything. "Michael, it's time," he said to his former business partner. "The silent investor needs to make an appearance at tomorrow's emergency board meeting." The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon, ostensibly to address the security breach. Rachel had spent the night reviewing security footage, which confirmed Ethan's alibi. He had indeed been working on the 9th floor during the time the files were accessed. As board members filed in, Rachel noticed an unusual tension. Michael Jensen, the normally unflappable CFO, kept checking his watch and glancing at the door. James Porter was huddled with Bradley Hoffman, both looking smug. "Before we begin," James said once everyone was seated, "I'd like to address the elephant in the room. This security breach represents a significant failure of leadership. While Rachel has done an admirable job as acting CEO, perhaps this incident demonstrates the need for a more experienced hand at the helm." Several board members nodded in agreement. Rachel was about to respond when the conference room door opened. A man in an impeccably tailored suit walked in. It took Rachel a full 3 seconds to recognize him. Ethan Mills, but transformed. Gone were the maintenance uniform and casual demeanor. In their place stood a man who radiated quiet authority, whose presence immediately commanded attention. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice carrying the same warmth Rachel recognized, but with an undercurrent of power she had never heard before. Traffic was worse than expected. The board chairman, Douglas Werner, rose to his feet in shock. "Ethan, what in God's name? Would someone please explain what's going on?" Rachel demanded. James Porter stood up, his face pale. "What is the maintenance man doing here? This is a closed board meeting." Ethan turned to Rachel, regret clear in his eyes. "I owe you an explanation, and an apology. My name is Ethan Mills, but I'm not just a maintenance worker. I'm one of the founding partners of Meridian Enterprises and the majority shareholder." The room erupted in chaos. Board members talking over each other, James demanding proof, Douglas attempting to restore order. Through it all, Rachel sat perfectly still, the pieces falling into place with devastating clarity. Every conversation, every coincidental meeting, every personal detail she had shared. Had it all been a test? A game to the billionaire owner, slumming it as a janitor to spy on his company? When Michael finally managed to quiet the room, Ethan continued. 3 years ago, after my wife's death, I stepped back from daily operations. I retained my ownership stake but arranged for anonymity, as I needed time to focus on raising my daughter. Recently, I decided to return but not directly to the executive suite. I wanted to understand how the company functioned at every level. "So you've been spying on us?" Bradley accused. "I prefer to think of it as field research," Ethan replied calmly. "And it's been illuminating. For instance, I discovered that someone has been deliberately undermining our acting CEO by fabricating a security breach." He nodded to Michael, who distributed folders to each board member. "These security logs show that the files in question were accessed using Scott Parker's credentials. But the digital signature matches a device registered to James Porter." All eyes turned to James, who had gone from pale to flushed. "This is absurd. You can't possibly believe." "We also have evidence," Ethan continued, "that Mr. Porter has been in talks with our competitors, sharing confidential information about our strategies." Throughout this revelation, Rachel maintained her composure, though inside, she was reeling. She had been right about Ethan's innocence, but wrong about everything else. "In light of this evidence," Douglas said gravely, "I move that we terminate James Porter's employment effective immediately, and proceed with a formal investigation." Now, Douglas turned to Ethan. "Perhaps you could clarify your intentions moving forward. Are you planning to resume your role as CEO?" Rachel's heart sank. Of course. That had been the plan all along. Evaluate her performance from the shadows, then step back in when he was ready. But Ethan surprised her again. "No," he said firmly. "I believe Meridian already has the right person in that position." He looked directly at Rachel. "I've had the unique opportunity to observe Miss Wilson's leadership without the filters that typically surround executive interactions. She leads with integrity, intelligence, and genuine concern for this company and its people. I can think of no one better qualified to lead Meridian into the future." When the meeting adjourned, Rachel remained seated as others filed out. Only when the room had emptied except for her and Ethan did she finally speak. Was any of it real? She asked quietly, not looking at him. All of it was real, Rachel. Every conversation, every moment. Now she did look up, anger flashing in her eyes. You lied to me from the first day we met. You pretended to be someone you weren't. I never pretended to be someone I wasn't, he countered. I am a father. I did lose my wife. I did work as a janitor these past months. The only thing I didn't tell you was that I also happen to own the company. A rather significant omission, don't you think? Her voice was ice. I had my reasons. Let me guess. You wanted to see who would be nice to the lowly janitor? Test everyone's character when they thought you were nobody? Was I just part of your social experiment? No. It wasn't like that. He leaned forward. When Sarah died, I lost myself. The company, the success, the money, none of it mattered anymore. I needed to step away, to remember who I was beyond all this. Working with my hands, being anonymous, it helped. For the first time in years, people saw me, not my wealth or position. And then I met you. His voice softened. You showed kindness to a janitor and his daughter when you had nothing to gain from it. That meant something to me, Rachel. It still does. So you kept up the charade. Watched me struggle with the board, with James, all while you could have ended it with a word? I wanted to tell you. So many times. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. But then I saw how brilliant you were at this job, how much you deserved the position on your own merits. I didn't want to interfere with that. And selfishly. I was afraid things would change between us once you knew who I really was. Rachel stood, needing distance from him. Things have changed, Ethan. How could they not? You had all the power in our relationship and never told me. Do you have any idea how that feels? I do, actually. His voice was quiet but firm. My last 2 relationships before Sarah were with women who were interested in my money, not me. When Sarah and I met, she had no idea who I was or what I had. She loved me for me. After losing her, I couldn't bear the thought of never having that kind of genuine connection again. The pain in his eyes was real, Rachel could see that. But it didn't erase her sense of betrayal. I need time, she said finally. To process all this. To figure out if I can trust you again. For the next 2 weeks, Rachel threw herself into work with renewed intensity. As permanent CEO, she had projects to oversee, strategies to implement, and a company to run. If she scheduled meetings during every lunch hour, and worked until midnight each day, it was merely dedication to her new role, not avoidance of a certain majority shareholder who had made himself scarce since the board meeting. But one day, a soft knock on her office door interrupted her concentration. She looked up to find Emma Mills standing in the doorway, copper curls tied back with a blue ribbon. "Hi, Miss Wilson," the little girl said with careful formality. "Daddy said I should wait here while he talks to Mr. Jensen." Rachel's professional mask slipped at the sight of the child. "Emma? What are you doing here? It's take your child to work day at my school." Emma stepped further into the office, looking around. "You look different." "Do I?" Rachel set aside her papers, giving the girl her full attention. Your clothes are fancier. And you look sad." The directness of children was both disarming and uncomfortable. "I'm not sad," Rachel said automatically. "Just busy." Emma didn't look convinced. "Daddy's sad too. He doesn't think I notice, but I do. He looks at his phone a lot, like he's waiting for something. And he makes your coffee in the morning but doesn't drink it." The image of Ethan making coffee he wouldn't drink, just to maintain the routine they had established, created an unexpected tightness in Rachel's chest. That evening, instead of working late, Rachel drove to her mother's house in the suburbs. As they worked side by side in the garden, she told her mother everything. "He lied to me, Mom. For months." Martha considered this. Did he lie, or did he just not tell you everything right away? Did he ever pretend to be someone he wasn't? Or did he simply show you one genuine part of himself before revealing another? And if he had introduced himself as the owner from the beginning, would you have gotten to know him the same way? Of course not. That would have been completely unprofessional. Exactly. Martha smiled gently. Sometimes we need to meet people outside the roles and titles that define us professionally. When she arrived home, she found a small package waiting outside her door. Inside was a handcrafted model ship in a bottle with a note in Ethan's handwriting. "Rachel, Emma insisted I send you our latest project. She says it represents bravery. Because ships have to leave safe harbors to go on adventures. I know you need space, and I respect that. But when you're ready to talk about the company or anything else, I'll be waiting." The next morning, Rachel called an emergency meeting of the department heads, including Ethan in his capacity as majority shareholder. The conference room filled quickly, curious whispers circulating about the purpose of the gathering. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. I've discovered some disturbing information that requires immediate action." She nodded to Melissa, who distributed folders to everyone present. "These documents show a pattern of corporate espionage and sabotage originating within Meridian." Bradley Hoffman shifted uncomfortably in his seat as Rachel continued. "Bradley Hoffman has been working with James for months to destabilize operations, leak confidential information to competitors, and create artificial crises that would reflect poorly on leadership." Rachel's voice was calm but steely. "This includes the incident that led to the unjust suspension of a maintenance employee who was framed for accessing confidential files." Bradley's face had gone pale. "This is absurd. You can't possibly believe." "The evidence is quite clear, Mr. Hoffman," Ethan interrupted, his tone measured but firm. Rachel turned to the head of security. "Please escort Mr. Hoffman from the building. His employment is terminated, effective immediately." The town hall meeting filled the grand auditorium with employees from every department. Ethan stepped to the podium first, his presence causing a ripple of whispers throughout the room. "Good morning, everyone," he began. "For those who don't know me, or rather, knew me in a different capacity, I'm Ethan Mills. 3 years ago, I stepped away from Meridian after the death of my wife. When I was ready to return, I wanted to understand Meridian as it truly was, not as people would present it to the returning founder, but as it functioned day to day for every employee." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "Most significantly, I had the opportunity to observe our CEO, Rachel Wilson, leading not from a position of privilege or entitlement, but with genuine vision and unwavering principle. I watched her make difficult decisions, stand up for employees regardless of their position, and navigate challenges with grace and determination." He gestured for her to join him at the podium, extending his hand. After a moment's hesitation, she stepped forward and took it, their fingers intertwining in a gesture too intimate to be merely professional. "While I will be taking a more active role as chairman of the board," Ethan announced, "I want to make it absolutely clear that Rachel Wilson has my complete confidence and support as CEO of Meridian Enterprises." 6 months later, the small kitchen in Ethan's riverside cottage was filled with the rich aroma of tomato sauce and fresh herbs. Rachel stood at the counter, carefully tearing lettuce for a salad while Ethan stirred the sauce on the stove. Through the window, they could see Emma in the backyard, teaching Fitzgerald, Rachel's cat, to chase a feather on a string. "She's going to be disappointed when she realizes cats aren't actually trainable," Rachel observed with amusement. "Let her dream," Ethan replied, dropping a kiss on Rachel's shoulder, as he reached past her for the garlic bread. "I made something at school today," Emma announced as they sat down to dinner. "For both of you." She pulled a slightly crumpled paper from her pocket and carefully smoothed it out on the table. It was a drawing showing 3 figures standing in front of the Meridian Enterprises building. "My family" was written across the top in careful block letters. Rachel felt her throat tighten with emotion as she studied the picture. "No question marks this time, just labels for Daddy, me, and Rachel. It's for career day," Emma explained. "We're supposed to bring our parents to school to talk about their jobs. I told Miss Lowell I needed both of you to come because you run the same company but do different things." After dinner, Rachel helped Emma with her math homework. They worked through the problems together, Rachel patiently guiding without simply providing answers. "If you and Daddy got married, would you be my stepmom?" The question caught Rachel completely off guard. "That would be the technical term, yes," Rachel answered carefully. "But relationships are about more than labels. Even without being married, I care about you very much." "I know," Emma said matter-of-factly. "But if you were officially my stepmom, I could just call you Mom for short. If you wanted. And if Mommy in heaven wouldn't mind." From the kitchen doorway came a soft sound. Rachel looked up to find Ethan standing there, having clearly overheard his daughter's words. "Emma," he said gently, coming to sit with them, "those are big thoughts for a little person. You love each other, though. I can tell. You look at Rachel the same way you look in the pictures with Mommy." Ethan's eyes met Rachel's across the coffee table, a world of unspoken emotion passing between them. "Yes," he said simply. "I do love Rachel." It was the first time he had said the words aloud. Rachel felt her heart expand with joy and certainty. "I love your dad too," she told Emma, her eyes still holding Ethan's. "And I love you, very much." Later, after Emma had gone to bed, Rachel and Ethan sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies blink in the summer darkness. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against him in comfortable silence. "Did you mean it?" he asked finally. "What you said to Emma?" Rachel lifted her head to look at him. About loving you both? With all my heart. Ethan's free hand reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. I've been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Leave it to my daughter to force the issue. Rachel's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. I had this whole speech planned, he admitted with a self-deprecating smile. About second chances and finding light after darkness. About how you really saw me when I was just the janitor with a kid. That sounds like a pretty good speech to me, Rachel said softly. Ethan took her hand, his expression growing serious. I know our situation is complicated professionally, personally, with Emma's needs to consider. But I can't imagine my future without you in it. Rachel Wilson, will you marry me? Yes, she whispered, her heart too full for elaborate answers. Yes, I will. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, she added, on one condition. Ethan raised an eyebrow, waiting. You admit that my pancakes are better than yours. His laugh was warm and genuine as he pulled her close. Never. But I'm willing to spend the rest of our lives debating the issue. Inside the house, peering through a crack in her bedroom curtains, Emma watched her father and Rachel embracing on the porch. She smiled to herself, satisfied with her handiwork, and climbed back into bed, Fitzgerald curling up at her feet. By the time Ethan and Rachel came in to check on her, she was sound asleep, dreaming of family breakfasts with pancakes, career day presentations, and a future filled with love that arrived in the most unexpected way.